Good morning. Time of the Barry Foster Show here at TK 730 Talk Radio. Glad to have you on board on a TGIF Friday, man. I'm so glad it's Friday. And we have a couple of great guests in this morning. Herb Summers, president and owner of Turn 2 Brewing Company, is that right? And Scott Dressel, who is the assistant brewmaster, is that right?
Something like that.
And here to look pretty?
Yes.
So, I talked to you a year ago at the I think the Rotary Club, and you were just kind of getting started at that point, right?
Yeah, it was actually September. We did the beer fest out at the Circle of Sebring, and we just we're trying to come out. We finally got to a point where we're a little bit ready to kind of bring ourselves out a little bit more. We got our business plan done, and we're right now seeking financing. But it's
what persuaded you to start a brewery of all the businesses you could have done?
Good question. I actually my sister started it off. She bought me one of those beer making kits a couple of years back, and a few years now. And I started with that one, and ever since then I just kind of loved it, and we loved brewing and seeing people's reactions from the beer and all that stuff. So
now, how did you get involved with Scott? Were you guys both out at the Yogi Bar having beers and decided this would be a good thing to do, or what happened exactly?
Actually, we were friends. There was another friend that was supposed to be involved in it, but he just couldn't do it with time and stuff like that. So it's just me and Scott, but we've been friends for quite a long time, and his wife I've known since grade school because we rode the same bus together.
Is that right?
We lived on the same street. So.
That's a true Highlands County story there. I mean, But now, do you brew your own beer as well? Do you have your own little kit and do stuff? Or
I, at one point, had the same kit. He actually bought it for me, the Mr. Beer kit. And I only did a couple of those before we decided to go in together and buy the bigger, the all-grain kit where you make 5 gallons of beer at a time and use grains. And you're using the same ingredients that the big breweries use. You're just doing it on a smaller scale. But the little kits you buy in the store, you're using extracts. And when you use all grains, you have a lot more control over what your flavor profiles are going to be, and you can adjust the grains down to the ounce.
So do you both have a big kit like that, or
no,
do you?
We have one between us, so we
at his house.
do it at the same time.
So do you sit down and say, I'd like to try this, or maybe we ought to try that, or you try one and begin to fine tune it and say a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that.
All of that. We come up with a recipe, and one of the best things about beer is that there are infinite possibilities, and we just decide, let's try this, and we try it, and we fine tune it. We've got the one right now that's sitting in the keg. It's a lemon square. We're trying to make a sweet lemony beer, and so we just started taste testing that Wednesday night, and we're coming up with we need to add a little bit more of this, and eventually we'll get it where we want it. We've got several that we've kind of pretty much got exactly where we want them. Got probably 5 or 6 that are set to where we want to get them, and then we were just talking last night about what's our next recipe we're going to come up with.
Once you get the lemon square down to exactly where you want it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're constantly working on recipes. So, we're not just going to have 5 or 6. We're going to have 70 or 80 eventually.
Well, once upon a long time ago, there was this restaurant, and this was when I was living a different life up in Polk County. It was called Yums, and Yums had 40 or 50 different kinds of beers that you could buy. They'd have the standard, the Budweiser and the Heinekens, but then they had Japanese beers. They had all these weird different kinds of, rice-based beers. And if you were a beer connoisseur, that's where you went, because normally you couldn't really find most of those beers other places. So, but now instead of the big breweries, it's all these little craft breweries that are you guys in touch with, I don't know, I was telling you before we went on the air, we were over at Mount Dora, and there's a Mount Dora brewery that's in a little strip mall over there. Do you guys go and try, Tampa Bay area, over to Cocoa, over to Tarpon Springs, whatever. Try different little craft beers that are around the state of Florida?
Yeah, we actually have. Specifically, one that's helped us out is Marker 48 Brewing in Pasco. Hernando County.
And Weeki Wachee, actually.
Weeki Wachee, yeah. Up off of 50, but they've been really helpful, and we've also hit a bunch along the east or western coast of Florida.
Is Marker 48 like where they are on I-95? Is that where they're?
Marker 48 is they got that name from a channel marker where they always go fishing. And we went over there just to because they had just opened, and so we just went over there to check it out, and we had called ahead, and Maurice and John, they spent 4 hours talking to us about beer and showing us their brewery, and it was just an invaluable learning experience. And we've also taken our beers over to, we went to J-Dubs in Sarasota, Motorworks in Darwin and Bradenton, and talked to the brew people over there and let them taste our beers and give us feedback, and it was a lot of fun.
Now what did they think of your beer? Were they brutally honest, or were they try to be nice?
No, they were brutally. I told them before they tried it to be brutally honest. I said, even if you take it in your mouth and spit it out immediately, at least that tells us something. And they gave us some good constructive criticism. That there was nothing they didn't like. There were things they said that could be better. Just little things that we could tweak. The one guy that does a lot of beer judging, it was the habanero, he said he would have given it a pretty good score if he was judging it for a contest. So
that right?
That was a good confidence booster.
Yeah.
So now you've got how many actual recipes of stuff that you think is okay? This is good to go. We like you had the lemon square.
Right now we have 7 recipes to start with. Yeah, and we're constantly working on them. We're tweaking them here and there and doing different things. So we're definitely working on recipes all the time.
The wonders of the cloud. There's our recipes.
Oh my!
There's a program called Beersmith that helps you keep track of your recipes, and it gives you good information about the different grains and the different hops. It tells you flavor profiles and what you can substitute for those, and so it's a very valuable tool, and it also helps us keep our recipes straight so that we know how to make them again.
Have you ever dumped anything out? Have you said, this is not what we thought would be good?
Out of the many batches that we've done, we had 2 batches that have been bad, and it was all because of yeast. Yeast is a big part of beer making process, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, either it was just some bad yeast or just didn't have enough there. Mm-hmm. We just had to dump a couple.
So it was a mixture problem. It wasn't putting the wrong ingredients together.
We've never had a...
Yeah, it was the first one. It was the only time we tried this brand of yeast, and we're not sure if it was the bad yeast or if it was because the way it was a different kind of yeast, and we just may have done something wrong, but it never fully fermented, which gives you a beer that tastes like soap.
Well, that's no good.
No.
Although we'll clean your mouth out.
And yeah, that one we tried a couple of times to drink that, and that one ended up getting dumped in the yard. And then we had another one that didn't. It just didn't quite. It was almost there. And that one may have been my fault that I may have gotten the yeast packet a little too warm before we pitched it into the fermenter, and so it just didn't quite get done. And it was drinkable. It just wasn't very good. So we drank about half it, and then I dumped it.
I'm going to ask you to put your headphones on, because guess what? You guys are popular. You're going to get a phone call here. It is 17 past the hour in the studio. Scott Dressel, Herb Summers from Turn 2 Brewery. Let's go to the phones. And good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Barry. How you doing?
Excellent. Sir, and yourself?
Pretty good. I'm glad you got somebody in there that I can relate to, and it's not about politics.
Our aim is to please, sir.
I make wine.
Oh.
And when I first started getting into wine, I joined the Central Florida Home Brewers Club. And the two groups of people, brewers and winemakers, get along well, but they are separate I learned a lot from the group. I entered some competitions, had a great time. I'm just wondering if you plan on starting an organization, and are you here in Sebring next?
Yeah, we're looking to start something here in Sebring once we get established. We're looking for probably about a year before we actually come out to the public as a official building and brewery. It takes a little bit to get that TTB license, usually about 8 to 10 months. So in the meantime, we are definitely going to be looking to start some processes where we can have some clubs, maybe even have some meetings at the brewery, have some collaborations between homebrewers and ourselves, and even make that beer once we collaborate on it.
That's fun. I've got a suggestion already.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely open to those kind of things, and we definitely want to get the public involved in brewing, especially. You know, it's a great thing, and everybody seems to love beer, so.
It's a natural, you know, it's a no-brainer.
That's a good thing about beer is if you've got a beer that you like, we can try to make something similar to it. I mean, we don't want to copy anybody's recipe to a T, but if you like a dark, you know, if you like a chocolate stout, we can make you a chocolate stout. You know, if you have something that you have never tried before, then you always wanted to try a beer that's whatever flavor, that's what's wonderful about it. You can put about anything you want to into a batch of beer and see what happens.
Yeah, wine is about the same way, and the type of wine I make is somewhat unique in that it's actually mead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some honey mead, which was very good. A friend of mine gave me a big 2 or 3 big jars of honey and said, see what you can do out of it. And they made some nice mead. It was very good.
Well, I found out through one of the books that I got, of course, both beer making and wine making were big in the colonial days. Benjamin Franklin, I think, is the recipe. One of his is the recipe that I used for something called a fragger. It was not a beer and not a wine. It was somewhere in between the two.
There's been a lot of that. You know, like you have the barley wines and stuff like that now, where they actually kind of use the yeast from wines in the beer making process, and it definitely is a different type of beer. But yeah, I mean, we'll have definitely some collaboration, you know, between the homebrewers and us once we come out and actually get the brewery started.
Actually, once we get it up and running, some of the places that we've been to, they have offered local wines for sale in there, so that might be something we would look at too, to collaborate with some of the, I assume there's still a few.
There's the Highlands County Wine Grape Growers Association that have.
I know Hen Scratch still does it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was in that club for a little while. Anyway, I look forward to it.
Hey, thanks for the call, bud. Appreciate it. It's 22 past here on the studios. Scott Dressel and Herb Summers from Turn 2 Brewery. When you guys started out, did you start out with the stuff that you liked, and then when you said, hey, we might go commercial, did you begin to look more like what sells well, in addition to the stuff that you like, or?
First thing we did was we took a beer and we tried to make a clone of it. And actually, it came out tasting better than the original because, you know, just differences in the water that's used to brew. And once we did that and that came out well, then we immediately turned around and made our own recipe, which the first one was the honey wheat. And yeah, you make things you like, but luckily, you know, we like a wide variety of beers, and that's the thing about craft beers. There's not really one kind of beer that seems to sell more than the others. You know, a lot of people like the IPAs. There's a lot of people who like the...
And IPA stands for?
India Pale Ale. That's the one that has a lot of hops in it. It's very, very bitter. It's an acquired taste, but a lot of people like it. Hops give beer that bite, that piney smell that some beers have, and that bite, and they also make the beer last longer. And the story is that the India Pale Ale is called that because they would put a lot of hops in their beer in England, and that's what they would ship to the troops in India. And the hops would keep the beer good for that long sea voyage, and that's why it's an India Pale Ale. But I'm not sure if that's an urban legend or if that's actually how it really happened.
So you have to shop the ingredients. I mean, do you say that brand A of hops is better than brand B of hops, or we'll use brand B in this one and brand C in the other one? I mean, is there?
I don't know about branding per se. There's definitely hundreds of varieties of hops out there from all over the world. You got some from England, some here from the U.S. Just about anywhere you think of is there's some sort of hops from that area. Same thing with the yeast. The yeast, you have English and American and German and every country under the sun basically. So it's not really a branding thing, but it's more of what particular type of hop or yeast or grains that you're looking for.
And there's different, the European hops taste different than the American hops. The American hops are more citrusy and piney, and the English hops are more mellow.
So for the honey wheat, I mean, you say that, hey, maybe next time we'll try this kind of hops rather than that kind of hops, or this kind of yeast rather than that kind of yeast. I mean,
we have kind of stuck with the originals, with balancing it out, a little bit differently each time, but it's a pretty solid recipe to begin with. We had it out at the beer fest at last September.
Yeah.
And a lot of people really, really responded to it and liked it. And the ones who didn't like that liked our mocha stout. So, it just varies.
What's not to like about mocha, really? Coffee and chocolate together. You can't beat that.
If you like coffee, you'd like that one.
Yeah.
The yeast has a lot to do with it too. We went to the place, it's a Brock's Homebrew over in Melbourne. That's where we get a lot of our supplies. And we went over there actually for a beer making class, right when we first started. And he had two beers. He had a kegerator that had two taps on it. And it was the same recipe of beer, other than one was made with he had two different kinds of yeast. The only thing different in the beer was the yeast. And you would have thought they were completely...
Is that right?
Yeah,
completely different profiles.
So it doesn't take much to give you a completely different tasting beer.
It's 25 past the hour. Scott Dressel and Herb Summers in the studios with us. We'll take a quick commercial break and be right back. Here at TK 730 Talk Radio in the studios, we have Scott Dressel, Herb Summers from Turn 2 Brewery. And I want to ask, how did you decide to do a hot pepper beer, a habanero beer? Was that after you've been drinking for a while and say, I'd try something hot? Or did you get this from shooting the breeze with other beer makers? Or
no, actually, I just kind of come up with it. Everybody does the jalapeno, mango, and stuff like that. So we wanted to be something different and creative. So we come up with apricot habanero, and it really turned out well. It's not real hot. It's not like what you're thinking, where it's going to be burning your throat or anything like that. It's just a great apricot flavor up front, and in the back end, you get a nice little tingle in your throat. So
the finish, as they say,
the finish
in the wine tasting, they call it the finish. So, I mean, are there any beers out there that I have a friend who really likes hot stuff. I mean, he likes his hot sauce like wrapped in tinfoil, something that has like hazardous waste material. In fact, one of the ladies in our Sunday school class, one of the guys, his mom, has made so much she's burned her fingerprints off her fingers. Okay,
Thank God.
That's a little too hot.
Do they have hot stuff like that in the beer world? Are you aware of that?
I bet.
I would venture to say, I haven't personally come across anything that's got any real high amounts of heat, but I would venture to say that there's something out there. Someone's got one, probably more of a novelty type beer, but something that's gonna heat your throat up pretty well.
So this has just got a little pizzazz to it, right?
Yeah, it's just a little tingle in your throat. I mean, it gets hotter as you kind of drink it, the more you have. I'd say about 3 or 4 beers in, you're probably, a good
enough.
tingle. Yeah.
When you're talking about the different ingredients like the hops and the yeast, the water being the number one ingredient, do you have to use distilled water, or you just water out of the tap?
You actually can't use distilled water.
You can't?
Yeah, the minerals that are required to, feed the yeast or help feed the yeast and stuff like that. So you just can't use distilled.
And that's what gives a lot of different beers their different flavors is the water that's used. And we actually took the City of Sebring water and got it tested to make sure it didn't have too much of this and too much of that. And our water was really good for making beer. We just put a little bit of
it's municipal water.
Yeah, it's just straight out of it's just tap water.
Yeah, we had a couple little minerals here and there to just give it that a little extra pizzazz, but yeah, nothing special.
No, because it's interesting. I bought this bottle of NASCAR water, okay? It cost me some horrible amount of money. You have the NASCAR, and when you read, I read the whole thing, and right in tiny print on the bottom it says, "Product of the Water Department of Winston-Salem, North Carolina." So here they are just filling up at the tap and saying, "Here's some tap water. We'll put a NASCAR label. It costs $5 now." So you're going to use Sebring water to make all of your now. Do you both live in Sebring where you can have access to Sebring water, or do you have to import it?
No, actually, we both live here in Sebring. So
neither one of us are in the city limits, but we're both on the Sebring utilities.
There you go. So you have that all together. You were talking about cloning. Is it difficult to make 2 batches of beer that taste indistinguishable from each other, or do they each one have a little bit different because you've done some micronomical thing differently?
It's fairly easy to get. Once you get the recipe set, if you just do the same thing over and over again, it should taste the same. Now, if you're trying to clone somebody else's beer and you're trying to figure out what they have in it, we haven't done that from scratch. We've looked online and found other people that said they cloned. That's how we did that first one. It was actually a recipe from the beer shop where we bought all the stuff. It was his version of a Fat Tire Amber Ale clone.
A Fat Tire?
It's called Fat Tire. Yes.
Now what does that mean exactly? Does that mean
it's just the brand name of the
beer? If I
beer.
drink too much, I'll have a Fat Tire?
Yeah, I'm sure. And so, that's the first one we tried, and then, we decided that we wanted to make our own recipes. So sometimes we will go look at other recipes to get an idea of what kind of combinations of hops they use and what kind of yeast they use to get a certain kind of flavor, but we sit down and we try to figure out our own way to get to where we want to go instead of, we don't want to just copy anybody.
Now, we talked back in September. Now, where are you in the lexicon of popping the front doors open and say, "Here we are, we're ready to go"? I mean, at what point are we at right now?
Right now, we're seeking a financing. I've gone to a bank as we speak. We're waiting to hear back from them. Actually, we have the SBDC, which is a small business. Actually, David Knowles has been helping us out, so he's been a great help.
From the SBA,
yeah. So. We're working with him and we're working with the banks right now to get the loan. I have a little bit of cash basically to add to the business, so that's basically my down payment. But we're looking hopefully, if everything goes well, it takes about a month to get the loan. Best case scenario, we're probably looking at March, April, May of next year to open, because once we get the financing, we have to have the building before we can even really apply for the TTB license, which is Tobacco and Trade Bureau. And unfortunately, with the manufacturing beer, we have to have that license. We can't even do anything until, we actually specifically have that specific license.
So you're trying to get the cart and the horse in the proper order?
Yeah, pretty much.
You have to have the barn first.
Yeah, okay. So at this point, you're looking for a loan. Are there investors who've said, "Hey, you know what? Having a brewery here in Highlands County, that's a pretty cool thing to invest in"? Has anybody, or have you approached anybody saying, you investing in this be a really cool thing?
We have a couple people that are interested, that we've spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to mostly do all this on our own. We will eventually look into investments if we need some. We're trying not to do that though. We're going to have a couple of things going on. A Kickstarter program. We're going to have some founder, things when we actually get to open the brewery. Something that we're kind of rolling around is, you give us $500 and you get one free beer every day for, 5 years.
Well, that's not
something
bad.
like that.
Good
and
deal.
Then $250 you get it for 2 years or something like that. So one free beer every day you come in. So that's kind of where we're kind of leading to.
We went on a trip recently over to the cocoa area. My wife bought 2 lottery tickets. We haven't checked yet, but if they come in, I'll be giving you a call here. So.
Right.
But right now, you're looking for this is going to be like one of these deals where you have a little testing restaurant type area, and then you have the brewery in the back. Is that kind of the on-site deal?
We're not going to have a restaurant per se. We're going to have a tasting room, or a tap room, whichever you prefer to call it.
Yeah.
But we won't actually have any food on site. We're going to try and
maybe snack like pork rinds,
we'll have some like
your bar staples.
Yeah. Some Gordettos or something like that. Some of those ones. We will have a spot for a food truck, so we're actually going to be looking into the food truck vendors. We'll have the ability to have people bring their own food in if they'd really like to and just come spend the time at the brewery. We're going to have brewery tours. We're going to have a beer garden. Probably have some games set up in the beer garden and stuff like that. We're going to look, cornhole, maybe some ping pong, something along those lines. We're going to look to have some live music going on. We'll have different things almost every weekend. So we're really looking to, try and get that set up, but we're still a year out, so a little time.
The building that you are looking for is really a for-purpose building because you need taller ceilings in yours, right?
12-foot ceilings for the brewery equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So
now the Highlands County Economic Development Commission just was up before the county commission, and they were saying, one thing you've been needing to have and you don't have, but apparently they do have now is as an inventory of available buildings. Have you gone to people and said, here's what we need to make our operation work? You have anything like that around?
Talked to a couple realtors.
Yeah.
And they've given us a couple ideas, and so we've got a couple of spots that we've looked at in a couple of places, that are in consideration.
Mm-hmm.
There are some places that will work that are already existing, and we always have the option of building our own. It'd basically just be it's almost like a warehouse is what a lot of the ones you go to are actually in warehouses. They converted them into they'll build out a section of it, and that's where their tasting room is, and then they just have a big set of windows, and you look out and you can see the guys brewing the beer.
Well, that's kind of, at Busch Gardens when you went to that was kind of the cool thing to watch all the cans going by and everything. Mm-hmm. And there was, you kind of have your own, attraction. We got another call? Okay, good. In the studios with us this morning, Scott Dressel, Herb Summers from Turn 2 Brewery. Let's go to the phones. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning. This beer sounds interesting, and I'd like to know where I can get the habanero.
We can't sell it to you. We could give you a bottle.
Yeah. With the TTB licensing that I was talking about earlier, we technically can't sell anything until we get that license, and unfortunately, we can't do that until we get the building. So we're working on it. We really want to get these flavors out to you guys. We're definitely going to try and do some local events that are coming up, and we'll probably try and brew some batches up.
We will be at the
give out samples.
Next beer, the Children's Museum
craft beer show.
Yeah. The round 4 on the circle. We will be there.
You better have this apricot habanero.
We will definitdy.
How much room do you have in your garage? They're looking for 4,000 square feet. You have 4,000 square feet and 12-foot ceiling in your garage? Because they could make you a deal.
They can make you a lot of beer.
Right now, you've got a group out here in Radio Land that would be in line right now.
Well, we're hoping for that. we definitely need the support from the community, and we definitely like hearing that kind of stuff. So we will be coming one way or the other. It's just going to take us a little time to get there.
Well, let me ask you this: Are you on the Facebook?
Yes.
Are you on the Facebook, caller?
Yes, and that's what my next question was: is how can I follow you to know what's going on?
Turn 2 Brewing on Facebook. You can just look us up, and you can send us messages on there. If you have anybody has any ideas of beers they want us to try to make, they can send us a message on there. We'll keep everybody.
Would you say that address again?
It's Turn 2 Brewing.
It's a word turn, then number 2, and then the word brewing. And if you put that in on your Facebook people, places, and things, that should pop up there, shouldn't it?
Yeah. Turn 2 Brewery or Turn 2 Brewing should populate on there.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be following you.
Wonderful.
Thanks for the call.
Glad to hear. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. It's 19 before the hour here at TK 730 Talk Radio. We'll do these and be right back. Hello, once, twice. Okay. What persuaded you to use Turn 2? How did you come up with Turn 2 as a name for your brewing company?
Well, we went back and forth with a bunch of names, and then my son's into baseball, and we wanted something that Highlands County would relate to for the Heartland area anyway. So we were thinking of the races, and we were thinking of like Hammock State Park, and we were thinking of different things. But what kind of stuck was the Turn 2 because it had both connotations of baseball, which my son was, he's still really into, and he plays out at Dixie Youth and Maxwell baseball fields. And then the other portion of it was the races. Turn 2, you got Turn 2 over there. And we weren't really particular on any particular Turn 2 or turn out there, but 2 kind of stuck because you can pull a double play in baseball, and that's kind of where.
Yeah, you can Turn 2.
Turn 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the baseball connotation here, you got the racing connotation. Nice logo. Did you do that? Yeah, Scott, you've already got your logo all set up and everything?
We do have the logo set up. It's on our page. And we're working on getting all this stuff set up so that we can come out, but just takes time.
So now how far out do you think you are again? A year out from putting this all together? If everything, let's say like not in the real world, but everything goes the way you want it to go?
If everything goes the way we want it to, we're looking probably about 10 months to a year.
I'd love to be open for the races next year.
We would. Yeah. We just don't know if we can. Usually what happens is with the TTB license, we might have everything done and ready to go within the 2 to 3 months, but it'll sit on that person's desk another 6 months for the finalization.
And you can't afford the lawyer to get it to move to the top of the pile?
We've heard stories one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. It's just that it's that person at the end that just kind of sits there on it. So
sometimes you got to know a guy who knows a guy.
Pretty much, yeah. So we're going to try and know that guy.
now I'm understanding that you have kind of crafted the titles of your recipes to kind of reflect racing or the 12 hours, that kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, it's reflective of racing right now. We haven't really had any baseball connotations for the actual names of the beer, but we have like the habanero apricot. It's going to be hot rod habanero. We have a pecan ale that's a prototype pecan. The honey wheat that we have, which was debuted at the beer fest that we did last September. That will be hairpin honey wheat, and so I mean we got a couple names coming out, but
are we gonna have Breslau Dark? That's a little inside media joke there, but
depends on if Ken can find me a place to park out there and they have a beer after, and if he gives me a private parking space.
Oh, there you have it. You don't know. He might be able to do that for you. But it does well to tie it to the race and because a lot of people around here. Now, are there other craft brewers with your level of dedication here? I mean, you guys are kind of like the Hen Scratch Winery of the beer area. I mean, Hen Scratch I think they're the only for-purpose profit-making winery here. Are there other craft brewers here that would join in and be with you guys if they could? Or?
We know there are some people who brew their own beer because we've run into them. We don't know if anybody has thought about going pro.
Yeah.
But we know several people who brew beer. We know several people who hang out with people who brew beer. But as far as anybody that has the all grain 5-gallon setup, I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
And if there are, we'd love to get together and brew beer.
Are there maybe in the outlying areas, Highland? I mean, Okeechobee, Polk, Hardy. Are there maybe some brewers with that level of craft? Are there craft beers that come out of like Polk County? For instance?
The only one that I know of that's even trying to come out is a gentleman out of Orlando, and I don't even know if he's still doing it anymore. But and we know it through a friend of ours, and he was actually at a Sun and Lake Beer Fest last year, but it was for Homesick Brewing. And
Homesick Brewing.
Yeah, he's the only one that I know of that would be relatively local. I know he's got some ties here in Sebring. I just don't know how far or whatever, but he's out of Orlando.
So you guys may be the bright spot here in the area that nobody else is.
The closest
we're trying to.
The closest one right now that's as far as a craft brewery is Winter Haven.
Okay. Yeah.
And that one just opened.
It just opened.
Just opened.
Yeah, I'll have to find. I may have to go. Like I said, I'm not really necessarily a big beer drinker, but I might go up in here. Last time we were in Mount Dora, we went. When you see a place like that, you want to support them. You go and have a little bit of beer. Anyway, all right. I got to get ready to wrap it up. It is 10 before the hour. We'll take our final commercial break and be back right after. Beer on a Friday morning. Go figure. Herb Summers, president and owner of Turn 2 Brewery, and Scott Dressel, who is the technical advisor. Is that way? Brewmaster.
I told you, my job is to drink. My job is to drink beer and look pretty.
Well, there you go.
DP and Brewmaster. Assistant Brewmaster.
Now we've talked about your Facebook page, and if you're a Facebooker, it's Turn and then the number 2 and then Brewery, and you go. I just went up there and liked it myself, so I can keep tabs. But is there anything that people out there in the listening audience can do to kind of help you guys out or help make the way for you?
We're actually going to probably start a Kickstarter program or something along those lines. We'll probably post that to the Facebook page. When that happens, we'll know more soon about that. Like I said, we're starting to seek funding right now. And then also when we go to do our Founders Day stuff, just be ready for that stuff when we get there.
And just keep eye on the Facebook page. We'll tell you, if we're going to any events that we'll be handing out samples of our beer, and just come try it and spread the word.
And the last one you did was the Rotary Club Chili Cook-Off?
Yeah, we did the Chili Cook-Off. Some friends of ours really like to do that, and we just kind of helped sponsor their team and went out there, and we gave out some samples. At that point, we actually had the habanero, the apricot habanero there for the Chili Cook-Off. So we had that one, and we had the pecan ale. Both of those were actually there at that event.
So it sounds like you get a good response wherever you go.
Yeah, everybody seems to like our beer. We've not had any complaints. As far as if they don't like the one, they usually like the other one that's on tap. So
do you kind of have to pick and choose? Like for instance, last week they had the Blueberry Festival up there in Avon Park, and they had vendors where they could. I imagine you could do the same kind of thing up there. Do you gotta pick and choose your festivals that you go to? And
yeah, because we could do something every week, but we just as it stands right now, we're making really small batches.
Right.
We could bump it up to probably 10 gallon, but we've got the equipment to do it. But we're just kind of sticking with the 5. So it's really tough because it takes about a month to make a beer. You got 2 weeks of, fermentation time, a week of carbonation, and then at least, a few hours in conditioning. Technically it should be a couple weeks, but,
then he drinks it all.
Well, you gotta make sure it's right.
Yeah, just several tastings.
Is it tough? Because you're serving an alcoholic beverage, and I was just at a Lakeland flea market, or Lakeland farmers market, and they have this stuff called kombucha, which is this fermented tea. It's a tea that has fermentation, so I think it has less than 1% alcohol, but they have to be real careful about who they let try it because it's a fermented product. Do you guys have that same problem because you're giving out little samples of beer to make sure? Do you have to have any special license to do a festival like that? Or
no, you can give it away to anybody over 21. You just want to check IDs and make sure. And there are limits to how much you can make per adult, per household, per year on basically an amateur status. But it's
another reason we do small batch.
But it's a lot of beer. It's 200 gallons per adult per house, so that's a lot of beer.
That's a lot of beer. That's even more than Herb can drink.
Yeah, I don't know.
You put back quite a lot. Huh? That's nicely done.
So there's not much regulation on who you can give it to, other than you obviously don't want to give it to somebody underage, and that's why the beer festival up at the Circle is good because nobody can even get on the Circle unless
you're of age. Okay. So listen, if you have, I need you to go right now to the word turn, the number 2, and then brewery on your Facebook page. Turn, number 2, brewery. Like the page there, and you can find out everything Herb and Scott are doing, getting ready for this. By the way, if you have a 4,000 square foot building in a high traffic area with 12-foot ceilings, they will name a beer after you if you want to cut the price in half, okay? Guys, hey, listen, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We hope it goes real well for you. I know we're going to take a little pause for the cause here.